Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Minchiate Monday. And today is about these final major arcana known as the air or the airy. And as well, I will be talking about the Fool card because we haven't covered that yet in any discussion. But let's begin with these 5 unnumbered, specially colored cards that come at the end of the triumphs: the star, the moon, the sun, the world, and the trumpets. Most of you are familiar with the meanings of these cards. However, in the Minchiate Tarot, I feel that I'm going to be adding some different dimensions to these cards, though some of them will reflect flavors of the Tarot de Marseille, particularly with the sun. These cards all receive 10 points in the game of Minchiate, so they are the most valuable, so they will take most tricks in the game. And if we are creating versicula, the sets of cards, you will need to have the sun for an heirs versicula, which makes the sun perhaps the most valuable of these 5 cards. Something interesting to think about. And remember that when making a set of cards, you need at least 3. So it may be star, moon, sun, world, sun, world, trumpets, or it could be a combination of 4 or 5 in a sequence as well. The decks that I'm sharing today you have all seen before, but in case you are new to this series, the one on the far left is the Minchiate Restore by Ige and Nadolny. This is the box cover. The one in the center is the Minchiate Florentine, part of Los Scarabæos Anima Antiqua series. And this is what the box looks like. At the time of recording, all of these decks were still available. And the one on the far right is the Minchiate of Bamarzo, created by Amparo Aguirre. These decks are all linked for you in the description box below. Light in the darkness. The star is a guiding light. It's a card that reminds us of the importance of signs and the trust that one must have in following signs, observing signs, even being aware that they exist. This is a really important lesson in the tarot that we may not get anywhere else. There is a significant sense of trust here. And I could see this card coming up in a tarot reading with the Faith card, the 18th Arcanum, representing that this is a time where we must allow ourselves to be guided, to trust in spirit. And all of these 5 cards have a quality of spirituality, a connection to the cosmos, to a greater consciousness, a different kind of perspective. This card could also reflect a journey. So when I say allow oneself to be guided, this could be a journey whose destination we aren't quite aware of, but we know that it is time to take the first step. It reminds me of an experience early in my journeys, and I wonder too if there may be one moving toward you, that you would have an opportunity to observe another on a journey. And in this way, other cards that symbolize journeys and unknown paths may emphasize or amplify. And so I think there's 2 different kinds of messages here. Perhaps these energies flow together, but one is in the trust in signs and symbols and messages, and then the other is in the process of shifting energy, of change, and allowing oneself to be guided to move forward. And additionally, I wonder if Venus might come into this reading. Venus, the morning star, Venus, the evening star. And it would be really beautiful if one of the zodiac cards ruled by Venus were to accompany the star card in your reading. In the moon card, we see the moon represented in all of her phases, and an astronomer or an astrologer gazes toward her light. And so here we have another card that illuminates the night, but carrying quite a different energy from the star. This is a card of cycles. It's a card of changing tides. It's a card of the blood moon cycle. And with the astrological wheel at the left hand of the astrologer, the astronomer, we are reminded how quickly and how constantly the moon is in flux. Perhaps the compass at the right hand measures, while the wheel at the left hand receives and interprets the information. In this portrayal of the moon, there certainly is a sense of wonder regarding the moon's changeable nature and how it affects our own cycles, shifts in mood, perspective, our own evolution, transitions in general, the internal movements of our physical body, our consciousness. The luminary closest to the earth is one that challenges us. It asks us to take time to understand how these phases are moving with us, moving through us. More so than the moon card in the Tarot de Marseille or the Rider-Waite-Smith. This one really does, I think, help to speak to the blood moon cycle as well. Brian Williams writes, "The moon reveals the potency and beauty of the night of the eternal feminine, cyclical, fertility, mystery, hidden factors, shadowy situations. The world is a different place at night in the light of the moon, and many things are hidden, including some dangers. But the silver mirror of the moon brings many blessings too. The cleansing dews, blessed slumber, transformative magic, vital fertility. Whether Artemis or Hecate, maiden or crone, the goddess of the moon presides proudly over her half of the world soul." And then I want to remember it is because of or thanks to the sun that our view of the moon is even possible. And so part of this reflection is in regarding the relationship between the solar masculine and the lunar feminine. The sun in the Tarot Minchiate looks a lot like the sun in the Tarot Soprafino. The power of love and connection, a great deal of warmth. And so you may find connections here to the Lover's card. And I wonder if Gemini were to make an appearance in a reading with the Sun card, where you might go with that, and how the flavor of love, the quality of love might shift or become a part of your interpretation response to the question. Under the brightness of the sun, all is exposed. And so there may be a cautionary tale here in just checking in with whether or not you are ready to share or reveal your whole self. If the darkness of the moon implies secrets of some kind, then in the sun, there is a danger of being fully exposed. Really interesting metaphor for exposure, sun exposure. In most cases, there will be no difficulty with this card. It will illuminate, bring positivity to the surrounding cards. It could bring a sense of clarity, self-confidence. Should the Leo card appear with the Sun card in a reading, you may want to be cautious of ego, boastfulness. At the same time, it may also just represent a need to step into the light, to step into the sun, to claim one's strength, power, rightful place at center stage. And remember again that without the sun card, the sets of cards, the high scoring points aren't possible with the 5 air cards. So this is a card that is very precious in this game. And then we come to the world card. And remember that in the game of Minchiate, the world precedes the judgment card, which is called the Trumpets card or the angel card, among other names. In some versions of this game, it's also called fame. One of the intriguing qualities or comparisons between these two cards is to note that the world is held within a wheel in the world card, but is open, and there's a sense of freedom in the Trumpets card. A major difference between the world card in the Tarot of Marseille and the Minchiate world card is that we have Cupid or Eros atop the world, a symbol of love. And so it appears we have a continuation of this powerful force from the Sun card to this card. And as we step forward, as we experience this culmination of our journey, let us be guided by love. Prioritize love, prioritize the well-being and the fulfillment of all those that are involved in the question that you are asking for your reading. Some very powerful reflections come from the Minchiate Restore by Ije and Nadolny, and I read in translation from the guidebook. The card evokes a profound sense of fulfillment. Every aspect of life seems perfectly aligned with the principle of love. In all aspects, it triumphs. Relationships flourish in an atmosphere of trust. Decisions based on positive criteria bring positive repercussions, and actions are guided by kindness toward oneself and others. It is total perfection. If it is a quest, however, it can become a burden that seems to imprison, like the city enclosed within a circle that can also be seen as guarded by the 4 cherubs. This card can warn against excessive perfectionism, which would consist of having a highly idealized vision of love. For example, forming a very precise idea of one's future relationship, to the point of blocking the path to more surprising encounters. And so with Cupid or Eros above and the 4 cherubs around the wheel, it really gives this world card a different flavor than perhaps we are used to interpreting for this arcanum. And in the Minchiate Florentine, we also see the 4 cherubs. The 4 winds and directions, portrayed as cherubic faces, frame the world. The world itself is a globe that shows Europe at its center, and the world as understood by the peoples of the ancient Mediterranean. And this is from Brian Williams, a word that means, of course, world center. And so this is quite a powerful contrast between the world card and then the trumpets card. That in the world card, we really are talking about our relationship with our earthly experience. And as we come to this point in our journey, I think the question of how we are going to navigate this becomes even more important. And you can see that in the Minchiate Florentine, we do have a reference to fame. I've had many aha moments in terms of the judgment card in its different forms, in different tarots. And I often see this as a place where we need to be really careful because we can't undo the step that we take here. One of the questions I ask a querent is, are you ready for this? There may be a need for some serious preparation before embracing the energy of this final card, or penultimate card in the case of most tarots. And Brian Williams definitely concurs with this notion. He writes, "The card of trumpets announces success, accomplishment, and fame. Achievements of all kinds, mastery and attainment, are made manifest, deserved recognition, worldly distinction, eminence, esteem. The trumpets also suggests the verdict of history or time. Our good works shall endure, and our evil deeds shall be revealed. Everything we do, small and large, resonates in rippling circles into eternity. Let us act in a way that gives fame reason to rejoice with us, to sound her trumpet in joyful triumph." And while the trumpet may evoke glory, recognizing or leading to a positive or liberating transformation, an awakening of sorts, the presence of the second trumpet warns against the consequences of irresponsible choices. And in translation from Nadolny and Ige, they write, "By concluding with this card, the Minchiate deck seems to emphasize personal responsibility in an earthly life that only transcends into the spiritual through concrete actions. On Judgment Day, the notion of choice will no longer be the opening of possibilities it seems to be for us today. Since we can still make different choices at the end of history, all our choices will have already been made. There will be no others, and they will be recognized and judged for what they were worth. These choices will henceforth be immutable facts. It is therefore necessary to act today with eternity in mind, for each of our choices remains etched in our history." So this is a major karma card, and perhaps is going to show up with justice. And so reconciling the difference between the justice card and this particular card is a really important part of understanding the journey through the major arcana. By the time we get here, there is not as much room for correction. If you like the keyword of adjustment for the justice card, there's a great deal of freedom at that point. But by the time these final major arcana are showing up in a reading, we need to remember that all is being revealed here. And the advice from the Restored Tarot is to act in private as if your choices were public knowledge. And the full circle here invites a profound letting go. I feel a vulnerability, a willingness, if we are to step into the heavenly energy, the ascension, the awakening of the Trumpets card, then without judgment, we courageously and vulnerably step forward into the next phase of our life. The Fool in the game of Minchiate has a tremendous amount of power. It's a wild card of sorts. At the end of the game, if your team has the Fool card, it adds 5 points to each of the sets in your match. And like I've mentioned, I'm no expert on the strategy for this game, but it feels like with this wild card, anything could be possible. Like I said in the previous card, if we are able to shed the self-imposed restrictions, the restrictions of society, the conventions of the world, allow ourselves to be vulnerable and yet open to higher frequencies, then we will know a deeper connection to the divine. Is the Fool aware of the energy of the Trumpets card? I think not, but in some primitive sort of way, this card symbolizes something quite similar. And while there might be a great deal of chaos, dishevelment, recklessness, or unpredictability with this character, Any or all of those things may be a response to giving up on the conventions of society and declaring that I'm going to do this my way. I don't need anybody else. And I can feel a lot of connections here. This card very much feels to me like a response to a Waite-Smith Four of Cups. It feels like it has a deep connection to the hanged man, in the sense that the hanged one was often one who was rejected by society and therefore put on the outside. So if you are going to reject me and put me on the outskirts of society, if you are going to reject me, then what do I have to lose? I can act, I can do, I can be anyone that I want to be. And if you are going to pay me to entertain, if you are going to support this freedom that I have found, then are you not the fool? I think with the Fool card in the Tarot de Marseille and the Minchiate Tarot, we need to take a more expanded perception of what this card represents. And I think it's up to you to determine whether the children in the Minchiate Fool are following like a Pied Piper kind of energy, or whether they are poking fun at. One of the writers I was reviewing for this video talked about the children throwing rocks, throwing stones at the Fool. So positively, this could be a card of total detachment from the opinions of others. On the other hand, it could warn of serious consequences for rash actions. But part of me wants to ask the querent, with this card showing up, what happened to get you to this point? Why this response? Why the blue hair? Why the freakish clothes? Why the excessive eccentricity? What does that do for you? What does that say to you? And though those kind of messages I would deliver with as much gentleness and kindness and compassion as possible, I think it's important, if you are using the tarot for healing, for deeper understanding, that we look at some of those qualities. And I have to say, I would never get there with a Golden Dawn inspired tarot. But there's just something about this card that leads me towards some very deep work. And so this concludes my preliminary reflections on the major arcana of the Minchiate Tarot, and I really look forward to your feedback. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you, and namaste.